Okay, call this meeting to order of the Local Agency Formation Commission, County of Kern, State of California. This is our April 26th, 2017 meeting, and I'll ask our clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Fowler,
Present.
Commissioner McKibben,
Present.
Commissioner Sanders,
Here.
Commissioner Parlier,
Here.
Commissioner Scribner,
Here.
Commissioner Mello,
Here.
Commissioner McGuire, Commissioner Couch, Commissioner Garola.
Present.
Great. Next on our agenda, we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance, and so that will be led by Chris Parlier. And I'll ask everybody to stand, please.
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 22nd, 2017 meetings. And so I'll ask the board if anybody has any changes. Otherwise, I'll request a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Motion approved, all ayes.
Thank you. And next on our agenda is we're going to consider item 5A, which is our proposed budget, but we are also going to hear item 8D and E because they are related to the budget. And we will have separate votes on those three items, but we are going to hear them all since they're regarding the same subject. So I'll ask Mr. Knox to start us off, please.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to consider public comments first?
I do because it's on the agenda before the budget, so I will.
Yes.
Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Now we'll move on to item 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The item you have before you is a 2017-2018 preliminary budget. This is the Commission and the public's first opportunity to review and comment on LAFCo's budget for the upcoming year. The final budget is required to be adopted by June 15th. Because we have our meetings late in the month, we will return to adopt the final budget in May. Let me highlight a few items in the preliminary budget for your consideration. In many ways, the budget numbers are very similar to last year's with few changes. Starting with salaries and employee benefits, we have an unfunded CalPERS liability, which has risen 20%. We have no control over that. That comes from the state. Group health insurance will reduce slightly due to carryover from the previous year. Carryover is the amount of the HRA that is not reimbursed to employees, but still have available to them. That gets reduced because our longest employee will no longer be on the rolls, so that will be reduced. Workers' comp insurance numbers were not available when we first put this budget together, but we've seen them since, and they are not going to be increased at this time. Salaries will rise by $20,000, as we discussed in the last commission meeting. Under services and supplies, office expense has risen in anticipation of additional computer and supplies for senior analysts. Lease on the building increases slightly over last year. This is part of the multi-year lease that runs until 2019. Transportation and travel miles are increased in anticipation of a larger reimbursement for those traveling to San Diego for the LAFCo conference. I was in Santa Barbara last year, and the potential that I may be going to Sacramento on some legislation at some point during the year. The numbers provided in regards to this year's budget increase and the budget are not accurate. And let me correct those. For 2013, it was 2% or 102% of the previous year's budget. 13-14 was 6% higher or 106% of the previous budget. 14-15 was 1%, 15-16, 6%, 16 and 17, 7%. And then we are asking for a 5% increase for this year. The executive officer's recommendation is approved a preliminary budget with addition of direction of items 8D and 8E. If you would like, I'd go over those items now for you.
I'll ask any commissioners, any questions on anything that before, or should you want to move on to the items 8D and E? Okay, I don't see any questions. Please proceed.
Okay. Item 8E is a budget reserve fund calculation. The LAFCo Commission set a budget reserve at a fixed $50,000 some years ago. At the time of the decision, the budget was approximately $500,000. Over the time, the budget increased and the reserve hasn't kept up. The amount needed in the reserve is directly tied to the amount of the buffer. Sorry, I lost my place. The greater includes the amount of buffer that's included within the budget. The more lean the budget is drawn, the more reserve is needed in case of unforeseen circumstances. The greater the budget, the buffer in the budget, the less reserve that is necessary. The preliminary budget you have before you in this cycle tries to bring a bit of balance between both a buffer in the budget and amount of reserves that are required. The policy committee met recently. They had a recommendation of a 10% budget reserve. If this budget is adopted, it would raise the amount to a little over $59,000 from the current amount of $50,000. In addition, the policy committee recommended that the commission should retain an equal amount of unpaid sick and vacation time. In the past, when someone has retired, we had not had money put aside for that sick and vacation time. It had to come directly out of just the next year's budget. So it would make sense to keep that money set aside, so when someone does retire, the money is there for them. After this year, you'll have a pretty young staff, so that number will not be very, very high to begin with. I missed an item. Go back
The
again.
purchasing card line item?
Yes, I missed the elimination of the purchasing card line item. The LAFCo budget has included a line item called the purchasing card expense. With this line item, it fluctuates around $10,000 per year. This appears to be a category of the budget that is not descriptive of what the expenses are. To have a budget more reflective of actual expenses, it would make more sense to zero out this budget item and include the equal amounts of funding in other categories that are clearly recognizable within the budget. We have things like our security system we pay on our credit card, that stays in there. Office supplies, which could be put in other categories. So it'd be more descriptive. The budget would show more accurately what it is. When I first saw that line item, it looked to me like kind of like a little slush fund, and I'm not really comfortable with that. So thought it was a good idea to bring this before the commission. My recommendation is be to zero out the purchasing card expense in the budget and increase other more descriptive categories as appropriate in the final budget, which will be brought back to you next month.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your remarks so far?
It does.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask if there are any members of the audience who would like to make any comment on any of these items. Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the commissioners. First, to ask if there are any questions, and then we need to take a separate vote on each of these items. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, then I would ask first that we have a motion for approval of item 5A, the Kern LAFCo 2016-2017 proposed budget.
Motion. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Motion passed, all ayes.
Okay, thank you. And then next would be a motion on item 8D, elimination of purchasing card line item in budget.
Motion. Second.
Okay, please cast your votes.
Motion
And
passed, all ayes.
thank you. And finally, item 8E, budget reserve fund calculation.
Motion. Second.
Please cast your votes. Please reconfirm your votes. Thank you. Okay, so now we will go back to item 5B. This concerns the West Kern Water District. This is a municipal services review, but I would also like to consider, or at least hear, the West Kern Water District, item C, Sphere of Influence Amendment, and also item 6A, West Kern Water District Annexation Number 16. The reason being, these are all related to West Kern Water District, so I'd like to do these three together, and then you probably guessed it, we're going to do the semi-tropic ones all together. So first we'll do the West Kern. So Mr. Knox, if you could start with you want to start with the annexation first, or should we start with the MSR?
Let's start with the MSR
Okay.
first. That has to be approved before you approve the sphere
Okay.
of influence.
Okay, very good. So 5B.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. West Kern Water District applied for a sphere review, a sphere expansion and an annexation back in December of 2016. The West Kern Water District has a water well field of approximately 492 acres that provides services to their customers, but is outside the district's current sphere and boundaries. This proposal is to bring that well field into the district's sphere and boundaries. West Kern provides municipal water service to its customers and is required to perform an MSR in conjunction with a sphere amendment. The municipal services review. There are several criteria in state law that are required in a municipal service review. Government Code Section 56430 requires LAFCo to conduct a municipal services review before or in conjunction with an action to establish or update a sphere of influence. Written statements of determination must be prepared with respect to each of the following. Growth and population projections for the affected area. Currently, there are a little over 20,000 people in Taft, and projected to be 22,700 by 2040. This includes the city of Taft, city of Maricopa, and the unincorporated communities of Taft Heights, South Taft, Ford City, Tutman, Dustin Acres, Valley Acres, Fellows, and McKittrick. The potential for potential population growth would most likely be in the Taft area, but the city is substantially surrounded, if I can use that term loosely, by oil fields and government-controlled properties, so they don't have a whole lot of room to grow. Another requirement is present and planned capacity for public facilities and adequacy of public services, including infrastructure needs or deficiencies. West Kern compiles a West Kern Urban Water Management Plan that analyzes the supplies and demand for water within their district. The district manages a water banking program which stores water in wet years to meet demand in dry years. The district is also looking into the potential of using recycled water and has applied to the state for a grant for that purpose. They also have to look at financial ability of agencies to provide services. A recent audit found that the district is on stable financial footing with surpluses in each of the last 5 years and has been paying down their long-term debt on time. Status of and opportunities for sharing facilities. Currently, the district shares facilities for groundwater banking and take water from the California Aqueduct that provides water to many contractors throughout the state. No additional shared facilities will be needed for the SOI or annexation. Accountability for community service needs, including governmental structure and operational efficiencies. The district has a 5-member board that meets publicly each month and are conducted in compliance with the Brown Act. And also asked for any other matters related to effective and efficient delivery, and they listed none. For the sphere of influence amendment, item 5C, the district application is to include approximately 492 acres of in both a sphere amendment and annexation. The property in question is currently owned and operated by the district itself as a water well field. The area is surrounded by agricultural lands on 3 sides and abuts the Tulare Elk State Reserve on the other. For the annexation, item 6A, again, there's 492 acres comprised of a well field owned by and operated by the district. There is an indemnification agreement between the district and Kern LAFCo. There is a notice of exemption for this project. There will be no additional infrastructure associated with this project. The infrastructure is already in place. There will be no tax increase. There will be no zone change, although the well field is not consistent with current zoning, but there is an exemption for water production facilities that their property falls under. It is consistent with commission policies. There will be no ag land conversion. It conforms to the assessor parcels. There is no functional overlap. There are disadvantaged unincorporated communities. West Kern identified 7 ducks, as we call them. All are currently being provided water services by West Kern. There are no additional ducks adjacent to the specific sphere or annexation expansion. They have performed an MSR and believe they have adequate water supplies, as this does not add any additional demand on the district. And there's landowner consent, 100% landowner consent, because they own the land. So it makes it very simple. The process required by the Cortese, Knox, Hertzberg has been followed, including notices to affected agencies and any notices and publications required by law. Annexations to the district has 100% landowner consent. The district has requested notice, hearing, and protest hearing be waived. It is my recommendation for item 5B that the MSR be adopted by resolution and the municipal services review, including all the determinations. For item 5C, the sphere of influence, is a recommendation that the commission consider the notice of exemption prepared by the district. It is also recommended that the commission consider the information provided in the sphere questionnaire and adopt the determinations in section 3 of the MSR and approve the sphere amendment to West Kern Water District with conditions recommended by the executive officer. For item 6B, the annexation, it is recommended that the commission consider the notice of exemption as adopted by the district and approve the proposed annexation, waiving notice, hearing, and protest hearing as requested by the applicant, subject to conditions and recommended by the executive officer. I just also note that we need to handle all 3 of these as separate line items, as separate votes. That's my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Knox. Are there any members of the audience who would like to make comment on any of these 3 items in regards to the West Kern Water District? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the commission. Any questions? If not, entertain a motion on staff's recommendation on item 5B.
Move approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Motion approved, all ayes.
Thank you. And now on item 5C, the SOI amendment.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion approved, all ayes.
Okay, and finally, we'll consider the annexation number 16, item 6A.
Motion. Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the West Kern Water District items. And now we'll move on to the semi-tropic water storage district items. First, we have item 5D. This is a municipal services review. And item 5E, the sphere of influence amendment. And finally, the annexation number 2, which is item 6B. Mr. Knox, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Semi-tropic water storage district, this is proceeding number 1702. We received an application from them in December 2016. Semi-tropic has applied to extend their sphere of influence by 1,714 acres and annex approximately 1,270 acres adjacent to the current district boundaries near Corcoran Road and Cecil Avenue, not far from the National Wildlife Refuge. The property in question is owned by a single entity that wishes to be in the district for water transportation purposes. Item 5D, municipal services review. Symmetropic does not provide a municipal service, but they complete an abbreviated MSR to complete specific criteria for an SOI amendment and annexation. There are criteria, Government Code Section 5643, that are required to be in municipal service reviews. Several criteria related to providing municipal services, which Symmetropic does not provide and therefore are not covered in the MSR. Written statements of determination must be prepared with respect to each of the following: growth and population projections for affected area. 98% of the district is designated agricultural or open space, and 2% is within the city of LAFCo, but does not provide any municipal water services. The district determined that any future growth would be ancillary to agricultural services. Another determination is to present and planned capacity of public facilities and adequacy of public services, including infrastructure needs or deficiencies. The district receives water from the State Water Project through a contract with the Kern County Water Agency. The district delivers water from available groundwater when available, and groundwater is used to cover when it is not delivered through this agreement. Symmetropic operates one of the largest groundwater banking programs in the world with 850,000 acre-feet of storage available and a total capacity of 1.5 million acre-feet. The district does not expect to meet all of the water needs of their customers, just the water that can be contracted and delivered. The rest will be provided by the farmers themselves through their own wells. Financial ability of agencies to provide services. This annexation and sphere amendment do not require additional district infrastructure and therefore will not increase district expenditures. Status and opportunities for shared facilities did not have any available to them. Accountability for community service needs, including government structure and operational efficiencies. Symmetropic operates a 7-member board consisting of landowners within the district. Public meetings are held monthly while following the rules of the Brown Act. There are also a line item for other matters related to effective and efficient service delivery, and they provided none. For the sphere influence amendment, item 5E, this is 2,714 acres, including additional acreage not to be proposed to annex here today, but may in some future date. In the executive office report, it incorrectly used the annexation acreage of 1,273. As you can see from the exhibit map, it makes sense to completely put the rest of the area under the sphere of influence to close out this area. Government Code Section 56.425D and I require that determining, adopting, amending, or updating a sphere of influence for a special district, the Commission may make certain determinations regarding land use, the need for public facilities, the present capacity and adequacy of public facilities, as well as the existence of any social or economic communities of interest in this area. Whew, that's a long sentence. These are covered in the Municipal Services Review. God, I went too far again. Under annexation, item 6B, this is 1,273 acres. On the map, that would be the striped area. Symmetropic indicates that other property owners adjacent to the proposed annexation were contracted and do not wish to be placed in the district at this time. The district has signed an indemnification agreement with Kern LAFCo. There is a notice of exemption to meet their CEQA requirements. Under taxation, there will be an assessment on the property and also water fees as water is delivered. There is no zone change as this is zoned agriculture and it is currently in production. This is consistent with Commission policies. There is no ag land conversion. It conforms with assessor's parcels. It is consistent with the general plan, the regional transportation, or a specific plan. There is no functional overlap. There are no ducks. There are duck clubs nearby, but no ducks. If you know that area, there's been duck clubs there for well over 75 years. They have completed an MSR. They have adequate water supplies under specific conditions. They also have 100% landowner consent. Under conditions, omitted from the executive officer's report are conditions between the semi-tropic and the property owner to the sphere of influence and annexation. The resolution of the semi-tropic board states that the property owner is required to bring their own water supply from an outside agreement to provide water to the property, or excess water that can be provided when available. The owner of the property, Paramount Farming, is in their letter requesting annexation, acknowledge that they have required additional surface waters available through delivery of the California Aqueduct it wishes to make available to this particular ranch. So the water will be provided by the farmer themselves, but run through district's infrastructure to get to that property. The process required by the Cortese Knox Hertzberg has been followed, including notices to affected agencies and any notices and publications required by law. Annexation to the district has 100% landowner consent. The district has requested notice, hearing, and protest hearing be waived. So on to recommendations. I did it again. Doesn't like me. Under item 5D, the municipal service review, is the recommendation to adopt by resolution the municipal services review, including all the determinations. Item 5E, the sphere of influence, consider and adopt the notice of exemption as adopted by the Semi-Tropic Water Storage District. Adopt the sphere of influence amendment with findings that the district meets all the determinations to expand their sphere. In item 6B, the annexation, is recommended that the commission consider the notice of exemption as adopted by the district and approve the proposed annexation, waiving notice, hearing, and protest hearing as requested by applicant, subject to the conditions recommended by the executive officer. And that's my report.
All right, now you can catch your breath. Thank you. That's quite a bit. All right, so I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to make comments on items 5D, 5E, or 6B in regards to the Semi-Tropic Water Storage District. Okay, seeing none, then I'll return to the commission, ask if there are any questions or comments. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion on staff's recommendation on item 5D.
Move approval?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passed, all ayes.
And now on item 5E, the sphere of influence amendment.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passed, all ayes.
Thank you. And now finally on item 6B, the annexation.
Motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passed, all ayes.
Thank you very much. Now we will move on to item 7 on our agenda, commission items. Any comments or items from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Then we'll move on to item 8A, approval of claims list number 17-03.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passed, all ayes.
Thank you. And now item 8B is consider additional commissioner to policy committee. Mr. Knox?
Yes, thank you. The policy committee currently has only 3 commissioners assigned. At the time of Commissioner McLaughlin's passing, no replacement was picked. Currently, there are representation from the county, the city, and at large, but not from special districts. It is not mandatory that to have someone assigned from special districts, but it's been the general will of the commission in the past to have broad representation of these committees. So it's up, the commission can decide for themselves. I have had a conversation with Mr. McKibben, who is interested in being on that. Karen Sanders being the other special district member, but she's on the personnel committee, and that would make sense to kind of split this up. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Very good. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Do we need a motion to that effect? Okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, please cast your votes.
Motion approved, all ayes.
Very good. Now, finally, on our agenda, we have item 8C, which is increase in executive officer maximum spending limit, and commissioners do have a memo in their packet on this item. Mr. Knox, please proceed.
Sure. Current commission policy is for the executive officer to bring any spending item over $1,000 to the commission for approval. This number has not changed in several years. It is good policy to have a limit on the spending of any management or staff of an agency as a precaution. At times, the $1,000 limit has slowed down work and functions of LAFCo as management has waited until the next meeting for specific expenses to be approved. A higher limit can be beneficial to the management of the agency without putting any finances or LAFCo at extended risk. This item is brought to the policy committee. It was their recommendation to increase the spending limit to $2,500. My recommendation is to raise the limit to make purchasing some items easier. I don't see any major items in the near future above $2,500. But I will leave it to the commission to decide a number that they are comfortable with if there is a will to raise the maximum.
Okay, very good. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the commission? Okay, how about members of the audience? Okay, seeing none. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Mr. Chairman, is that for the committee recommendation?
Yes, ma'am. That's the way I took it. There's a motion on the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Motion passed, all ayes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda, and so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment, please.
Mr. Chairman, I do
Yes,
have
sir.
a couple other items.
Okay,
just
sorry.
General information.
Okay, very good.
During the policy committee, we had several other items that we discussed that I want to bring to your attention. In your budget, we collect fees and also collect an assessment. The application fees have not been raised for several years, and in order to raise the fees, a study has to be completed to show that we aren't spending more, we're not collecting more than we're spending on a particular item. We have looked at this a little bit in the past, and to hire an outside firm would be pretty expensive to do this. So the policy committee requested that I look into different options and costs to do an internal study, see if we can do it ourselves. And I'll be reaching out to other executive officers around the state and see if any others have done it internally and if there's a path to get that done. My thought is, a $15,000, $20,000 study to collect an additional $5,000, $10,000 doesn't make any sense. So if we can make this work financially to do it in-house, we'll find a way to do that. Also in the policy committee, we discussed legislative policy. And the idea is to create a legislative policy guideline for the executive officer in order to be able to lobby on behalf of the district up in Sacramento. This is kind of patterned after what the county has. They have a legislative policy document that staff works off of so that when things move fast in Sacramento, staff and the lobbyists on behalf of the county can move forward very quickly. We have LAFCo that represents us in Sacramento. And for the most part, I believe that they do a terrific job for us. There are some items, as you know, there are LAFCo commissions in other counties that are more anti-growth than we are here. And sometimes those creep into LAFCo's policies, and we may be in a position where we have to defend ourselves from time to time to do it individually on our own behalf. So putting together a document like this is going to be a challenge because all of you are going to have to agree on one policy. That's going to be a challenge on my part to come up with something that works for everyone. But I'm willing to take that on because I think we really need to have a voice in Sacramento to speak on the behalf of this commission. We also looked at a couple of different other items in the policy committee, including definitions, one for municipal services, one for substantially surrounded, and a specific definition for disadvantaged unincorporated communities. I will continue to work on those going forward, but not ready to bring them to the commission or back. I will actually go back to the policy committee first before bringing them to the commission. And of course, my last item is the next meeting, which is Wednesday, May 24th at 5 o'clock here in the chambers. I want to mention that there are 5 Wednesdays in May, and we meet on the 4th. So if you think it's the last, it's not. It's going to be on the 24th. And that's the end of my comments.
Okay, thank you. So those are all informational items. Do we have any questions or comments from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.